So hello and welcome to the Action Coach Business Spotlight. I'm John Boggis with my wife Lorna McAteer. We run Action Coach in Cambridge, helping businesses right across the Cambridge region. And with me today, I'm delighted to say that I have Malcom and Andrew Coury. Malcom and Andrew are the father and son team that run Dartington Wealth Management. Hello, Malcom and Andrew.
Hi. Hello, John.
Right. Well, to kick things off and to give us a little background, I wondered if you could just tell us a bit about your business.
Okay. Well, Dartington Wealth Management started life as Lee and Company back in 1962. And it was a general insurance brokerage where the partner set up a financial services business. And my previous business that I sold in 2016 acquired Lee & Co., or the financial services part of Lee & Co. anyway, in 2009. And when I sold Moneywise IFA Limited, which was a business that had 4 offices around the country, and the main office was in Bath, where I lived for 30 years, where Andrew was born and brought up, and so on. When I sold that business, I effectively bought back the Cambridge office. And at the time, it was equivalent to about 23% of the whole business as a whole. But as I'd moved up to Cambridge by then, and also I was getting divorced, it seemed like a good way of just keeping my hand in, so to speak, and just running a smaller business. And I was, if I'm honest with you, having been through divorce and then selling that business and all the rest of it, I think I was sort of a bit fed up with life. And when I started Dartington in 2016, I didn't really have any plans for it, if I'm honest with you. It's just a case of, well, keeps me occupied, gives me an income and so on. But actually what happened is I very quickly started enjoying life again, as in running a business on my own again, rather than with co-directors. It was great fun having that freedom to just make decisions and just get on and do things, rather than have to constantly have arguments with people about what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. Yeah. So it was really enjoyable, and the business started to grow naturally, although there weren't any major plans for it to grow. As I say, it was more of a retirement swan song in a way. And because I was enjoying it so much, and it was growing nicely, and it was becoming very profitable, I was talking to both my sons actually about the opportunity to come and join me, so that when I retire, they could take over. As it happens, only one of my sons bit, and that was Andrew. He was working in investment banking at the time in London. He'd been working in London and New York for Bloomberg and then Liberum, getting paid a lot of money, but having a very stressful life. Starting at 7 in the morning, finishing at 7 at night, and so on. So, having seen his dad in the business for 30 plus years, he thought, well, Dad made a career out of it. I could make a career out of it. Sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Andrew, but that's the sort of thing he said. So Andrew joined me 3 years ago, and we're in the process now of our handover, not just from myself, but yet a couple of my other colleagues who are retiring as well, because I'll be retiring shortly and just working part-time, although I don't work full-time now anyway. But as Andrew and the younger team that we're building, I stress that's really important, because when the business started, there were four of us over 60, well, approaching or now over 60. Yeah. And over the last few years, we've been recruiting younger people, including Andrew, and we've got some graduates and so on. So that the average age of the team has plummeted, as we've got now people in their 20s and 30s and 40s working, and the business has doubled in that time. So we're talking about nearly 7 years now, and it's doubled just organically. It's not been a drive for growth. It's just been a natural growth.
Fantastic. And just to go over to Andrew. So, Andrew, where are you based? How many staff do you have at the moment?
Sure. So we're just off of Cherry Hinton Road, and we have been in the same complex. So I suppose 20 plus years, moving from one unit to the next. We're now a team of 14, and we're adding another 2 over the next couple of months. So we're growing as a staff. We are very much local to Cambridge, with our roots back to 1962.
Great stuff. And who are the clients that you work with at the moment, Andrew?
So we have quite a range of clients, because ultimately who needs our services and how they need them vary through life. So we've got a lot of people who are working, accumulating, saving towards retirement and need advice along the way. We have those that are approaching retirement or just into retirement and want to understand how to produce an income in a tax efficient way, for example. And we have those who are later in life who might need advice around care needs, or might need advice around leaving a legacy for children, family, loved ones, or perhaps charities. So we do have quite a broad spectrum of clients. And Cambridge being an affluent area with lots of booming businesses and industries, and property prices having gone through the roof, there's a lot of people that need advice around how to manage their finances.
Yeah, fantastic. And both of you are obviously in the finance industry. And this is a question, first of all, to Malcolm. Was this always what you wanted to do, Malcolm?
Well, if we go back to when I started back in the early 80s, then no. I thought I was going to be a doctor, and then I thought I was going to be work in the forest, and I ended up in 1983 taking a job in financial services. I didn't really know that's what I was doing at the time. It was all very salesy back in those days. It's 40 years ago, isn't it? But I took to it like a duck to water, really. And before I knew it, I was one of the top producing advisors within that organization. And then within a few years, I was running a branch, and then I ended up moving and running a region, opened 5 offices for them, had about 80 people I was managing. And then when I sort of jacked all that in and set up my own business, in the 90s, I just sort of wanted to get away from that salesy environment and just really run more of a professional practice, which is when I set up Moneywise. And then 19 years later, that grew to a reasonable sized business, looking after, 350 million or something, and turning over about 4 million a year in revenues. And then obviously I sold that, and then Dartington came out of that as a one location office in Cambridge. And I'm not really ambitious anymore. As I said to you earlier, before the interview, I'm looking really at my exit, and there's been a succession plan that we've been working on over the last 3 years, which Andrew's been very much involved, as we've been building a younger team to take over the business and look after it for the next probably 30 years. But we've got deep roots in Cambridge, and it's not just private individuals as well we deal with. We've got clients including colleges. I can't give you all the names. Having said that, you can probably find them on our website. But we do advise companies as well, and we have an employee benefits division, which is now starting to take off. It's always been quite a small part of our business, but it's now starting to take off. And we've actually got some household name clients where we do look after the benefits for those employees, whole range, workplace pension, private medical insurance, group life, you name it, and help them as well as what you might call mass affluent to high net worth individuals. So, our typical client has probably got, give or take £500,000 that we look after, but obviously we've got smaller ones and we've got larger ones. Yeah. So as Andrew says, it's quite a cross section.
And Andrew, was this always what you wanted to do as well, to be part of the financial services industry?
I suppose when I left university, I was my first job actually was in the tech sector, very different. But I quickly realised that it wasn't for me, and I looked at what my cohort were doing. I left and I joined Bloomberg. And having worked for a few multinationals, I suppose it was a bit of a wandering career, if you will. I trained as a financial analyst, and I was involved in the institutional world of financial services. My clients in my former life were the major banks. But having reflected on what I want to do as I got married and had kids, and what was important changed, particularly with regulatory changes in financial services meant that the remuneration structure wasn't as appealing. So what's the right balance was a very difficult question to answer. But then, after several years of conversations, decided to move up and become a family-run business. The most rewarding thing from my point of view is now that conversations I have with clients actually has direct impact on their life and their finances. And that tangibility is worth so much. It's not just a question of going and working and building a business. It's how do you help people?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And a question to both of you: what would you say has been the biggest issue that you've had to overcome in business?
You want to start with that?
Gosh, it depends on what level you're talking about. I think, on an individual basis, there's your own head, isn't there? How you think. Sometimes that's a challenge. And if you look, I suppose, industry-wide, the biggest challenge undoubtedly for financial services has always been regulation, because we are an extremely highly regulated business to be in. And I think at times it's frustrating, because you know that if you run a clean, compliant operation, as we do, but you're constantly bombarded with changes and new regulations, it's just all onerous additional layers of work. But the cowboys, the people that ignore the rules, they'll carry on ignoring the rules. So sometimes it's a bit frustrating, because you think, well, now we've got to do all of these extra things, where actually we're doing things very well. We've got no complaints, we've had no problems, etc., etc. So that's the biggest challenge from a business perspective, is just the ongoing barrage of regulation from the FCA.
Yeah, no, I entirely understand. And Andrew, anything to add on the kind of challenges that you faced?
I think recently what we're doing as a business is a transition from retirees to replenishing the bloodstock, if you will. Finding good, talented people has been a challenge for the last couple of years. Thankfully, we've managed to secure a few very good individuals, very strong individuals, and that will be a challenge very much going forward in the future of the business as we start to really focus on our growth strategies.
Okay, fantastic. And question to Andrew first of all: what would you say, since you've been in business, what do you think have been your kind of biggest learnings in business and also in life, Andrew?
I think there's a huge shift when you move from being an employee to being an employer. Yeah. And the obvious attraction are the flexibilities and perhaps wanting or deciding to pay yourself more or less, but all of a sudden you've got a responsibility to everybody else who sits around you, and that's not something to be taken lightly. And while you've got the prospects of growth and really steering your own ship, that's so exciting. It does come with responsibilities that should not be overlooked.
Yeah, I think it's a really big transition, like you say, going from being an employee. The mindset change is, just as Malcolm said, is huge.
Yeah.
And Malcolm, what would you say has been your kind of biggest learnings in business and life?
Goodness, my experience is obviously limited to this sector, but I think when I look back, where I possibly made mistakes is perhaps giving away too much control and influence to other people. But having said that, one has to do that to grow. And I think, most of the time people don't let you down. And my philosophy is always, treat people as adults and respect them and give them rope. And probably 90% of the time that works really, really well. Unfortunately, at Dartington, it's worked really, really well, and I haven't had a problem. But I think with my previous business, I think I got let down by one or two people who I'd given rope to and trusted, and it sort of backfired a little bit, which was why I was quite keen in the end to sell my previous business. And whilst I understand that if you don't let go, you don't grow, because the business I had nearly 40 people in it before. I've not been in a rush to let go this time with Dartington because of what I learned from my previous business. So it's been a very slow, very gradual letting go and transition, and what we call succession plan. Yeah. And the fact that I've had my son alongside me working on that plan has meant I've got someone who I can trust with my life. Yeah. So it's been a lot easier. We've got each other's back, if you like. And from my perspective, looking forward, although I am going to be retiring, it's very exciting because of the talented people that we've got within the firm now. And we've got, chartered accountants, we've got chartered financial analysts, we've got chartered financial planners. 3 more of the team will be chartered by the end of this year, be chartered financial planners. So for me, it's very exciting seeing these youngsters coming through, grabbing that responsibility with both hands, and actually they're better than me, way better than me, because they're very happy to take all these additional exams. Yeah. And because they're younger, they're motivated, and they've got a long time horizon ahead of them. So for me, that's a very, very exciting prospect, and I'm so pleased that my son's going to be sort of leading that team for the next X years into the future, while I sort of gradually step back.
Yeah, and do you know what, Malcolm? It's a really great point. I mean, trust is the foundation of any team that really works. So if you don't have the trust, then it's really difficult to get it to work. So starting from a place where you've got absolute trust seems like a great place to work from.
No, absolutely, and hopefully Andrew feels the same.
Of course we do.
And what does the future look like for Dartington? What do you see as kind of the challenges going forward as you go into the kind of the next phase of the business? Maybe I should ask Andrew that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's growth is the agenda at the moment, and it's finding ways that you are growing at a rate that doesn't introduce too many headaches. Inevitably, there's teething issues. Part of that is who we take on, but also part of that is how we find or identify other target clients. And beyond that, is there scope for perhaps picking up some of the firms who are in a similar position to ours, those that may be looking for retirement or an exit? What happens to their client bank? But just because a financial advisor retires doesn't mean their clients don't stop needing service.
Yeah, absolutely true.
So it's how do we get the right balance between achieving those growth ambitions without destabilizing our operations, with a heavy overlay of regulation. Ultimately, customers, clients come first. We can't derail that for the sake of growing too quickly.
Yeah. Malcolm, anything to add that you see as a challenge going forward?
Well, every day is a challenge, isn't it? I suppose. But no, I think Andrew's on the button there. I mean, the biggest challenge is getting quality people in. I mean, we've been very, very fortunate in that we have a strength and depth within a small team that you wouldn't expect within a small team. The fact, as I mentioned, we've got a couple of chartered accountants working within the firm. Andrew's a chartered financial analyst. We've brought through graduates and the like. We've even got support staff who are chartered as well. Now, obviously, they don't come cheap. But then, a bit of a cliche, but if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So from our perspective, it's better to recruit really quality people. Yeah. And their own experiences are very deep, and in some cases, outside of financial services, in accountancy, as I mentioned. And that all brings a sort of different dynamic or dimension to what the firm is able to do. And I mean, I've had a lot of people very surprised at the strength and depth we've got for such a small organisation, and a number of those people have worked for very large organisations, including Andrew. So they've seen both sides of the fence. And being a small organisation, of course, we're nimble. It means that if something comes up, we decide, well, it makes sense to do X or Y, or we have a conversation. We say, well, if it makes sense, let's do it, and we make sure that we do it compliantly and properly, and put the right mechanisms in place to ensure that these things happen. But we will do it quickly. And as Andrew says, it's always about the client coming first. When you're working for a larger organisation, and I know even with my last business, which wasn't that huge, but even with sort of 40 odd people, decisions get slowed down because there are more and more people involved. And even if it's the right decision, you have to jump through a lot of hoops, and it might take you 3 months to get to where you knew you were going to get right at the beginning. Whereas, being a smaller, nimbler business, it means we can make a decision and we can get cracking on it within the month.
Yeah, it makes a huge amount of difference. And Andrew, what would you say would be the best piece of advice you would give your 18-year-old self?
Gosh, that's a tricky one. Don't chase the money. Figure out what interests you, and the money will come. It's a bit cliche, but I think back to my former life where you racked up 50, 60 hours by Thursday. It's not the be all and end all. There's other things in life which don't come with pound signs.
Yeah, I think you're entirely right, Andrew. Lots of people kind of have the mindset where they think, I'll just work really hard for the next 5 years, and then I can start to kind of live life. But actually, life happens now, and you have to make sure that you're there for life now. And what about you, Malcolm? What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I would have said exactly what Andrew just said.
Okay.
I would have said, yeah, don't chase the money. Do what you're passionate about. Do what you want to do. Whether that's in sport or in business, and if you're successful, the rewards will follow. But don't do things just for the reward, because if you just chase the money, you're going to get disillusioned if it doesn't happen. So do what you enjoy doing, and do it with a passion. And as I say, the rewards follow the success. It's not the other way around.
It's a really fantastic point. And just before we finish, is there anything else that we should know about Dartington Wealth Management? Anything you're working on? Anything that it would be really good to share?
Yeah, we are working on some stuff that's going to help us step up a bit, but it's not something we can disclose.
Okay. And
I think we're just constantly out there in the local community, growing our professional networks, our professional relationships, and finding more ways to help our clients. We're not a sleepy business. We've got a young team. Well, now we do, and we're just looking to put our best foot forward and continue to do what we've done since trading as Dartington.
Fantastic. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you and find out more about what you do, or they're looking for help with their own personal wealth, how is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I think the first stop absolutely is our website. We are very transparent. We have our terms and conditions, our client agreement, we have a fees calculator, but we have a whole host of downloadable brochures. And that's very much food for thought around all sorts of financial questions, whether it be saving while you're working, or retirement, or even beyond. But pick up the phone. We've got a great team who can direct your queries to the appropriate person. And we're always available to talk.
Great stuff.
And we always follow up inquiries that come through the website as well. We try and follow them up pretty quickly. But as Andrew says, there's a lot of material on there that people can download. I think you just have to, for the downloads, not all of them, but on the publications page, you just have to put your name and email in. And obviously we get an email internally. It says, so-and-so's downloaded inheritance tax guide, or, setting financial goals guide, or whatever. And we just send a polite email saying, we noticed you downloaded a guide. If we can help, please get in touch, But yeah, it's a good place to start.
Great stuff. Malcolm, Andrew, that was absolutely fascinating. about the transition from father to son. I think that will resonate with a lot of people who are also listening. But so thank you very much for spending the time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, good to meet you, John, and likewise.